Welcome back to Words Work Well. I got a name for the podcast. I am Ashanti. I am a school librarian, and I'm excited that I actually came back for round 2. I was very nervous about putting a podcast or a storytelling experience about connecting energetic literature with our lives, with our experiences, with each other, but ultimately with the sporadic, spontaneous, conspiracy-like settings and experiences that we have to literature. And I am so excited to continue speaking and reading, and we're going to go part 2 with the same book we did from the first episode, and it is The Creative Act, A Way of Being by Rubin. I am going to start with point of reference. It's on page 235. Now, I want to talk about the experience of me actually getting this book, because that is a part of the energetic connectivity that I'm going to mention on every episode, because that is the gist of why I am reading a book and reading sections of a book and sharing them. It's not because of policy. It's not because of copyright. It's simply because I'm a librarian, and it's important we find creative ways to bring literature to life for patrons. And I want to entertain the idea of being a worldwide librarian, because we have so much information readily accessible to us as professionals. But that's not the hard work. The hard work is organizing it so it's appropriate for the community or population I serve. And then also making sure that what I'm sharing is rooted in relevance, accuracy, and purpose. See what I did there? If you watch the first or listen to the first episode of this series, Words Work Well, then you would know exactly what I'm referencing. But it's rap. It's being relevant to the community. It's being accurate in how we storytell. It doesn't mean that we can't share fiction stories. I think I used to feel like that or believe that when I started this road in librarianship and being a storyteller, is I felt like everything had to be nonfiction, everything had to be based in truth. But that isn't always what accurate means. Sometimes accurate just means that what I'm saying aligns with the story's purpose. If it's meant to share love and light, am I using a love and light tone when I'm talking about this work? Or am I overly energetic when I am sharing this product or artifact with a patron? There's a lot of things that are important or good to know when talking about sharing, storytelling, or providing information. So, nonetheless, I digress. I'll probably say that every episode before I start reading. So we're going to go ahead and start on point of reference, page 235. So 235. Every so often, you hear a new recording by an artist you've been following for a period of time who's breaking strange new ground. It feels odd to hear the work at first. It seems unfamiliar. You have no context for it. You may not be sure you like it. You may even reject it. Still, you're compelled to listen again and again. A new pattern begins to emerge in your brain. What was strange becomes a little more familiar. You start to see how it connects to what came before. It begins to click in your mind whether you like it or not. And then one day, you realize you can't live without it. When a beloved artist thwarts our expectations or a new artist defies known precedents, it can be confusing. Initially, the work may feel unsatisfying or of no interest whatsoever. Once we get over the hump of adapting ourselves to the new palette, these can end up being our favorite works. Conversely, Works we like immediately might not have the same power down the road. The very same phenomenon can happen while making our own work. If you're looking for solutions to a problem or a new project to begin, you may react in a strongly negative way to an option that springs forth. This can be when the idea is so new that you don't have any context for it. When we don't have context, new ideas appear foreign or awkward. Sometimes the ideas that least match our expectations are the most innovative. By definition, revolutionary ideas have no context. They invent on their own. When we initially experience the radically new, our first instinct might be to push it away and think, this isn't for me. And sometimes it may not be. Other times it could lead to our most enduring, important work. Be aware of strong responses. If you're immediately turned off by an experience, it's worth examining why. Powerful reactions often indicate deeper wells of meaning. And perhaps by exploring them, you'll be led to the next step on your creative path. Wow. Non-competition. Page 237. Art is about the maker. Its aim to be an expression of who we are. This makes competition absurd. Every artist's playing field is specific to them. You are creating the work that best represents you. Another artist is making the work that best represents them. The two cannot be measured against one another. Art relates to the artist making it and the unique contribution they are bringing to the culture. Some may argue that competition inspires greatness. The challenge of exceeding what others have accomplished can act as an incentive to push our creative limits. In most cases, though, this energy of competition isolates at a lower vibration. Wanting to outperform another artist or make a work better than theirs rarely results in true greatness. Nor is it a mindset that has a healthy impact on the rest of our lives. As Theodore Roosevelt pointed out, comparison is the thief of joy. Besides, why would we want to create with the purpose of diminishing someone else? I felt some real work going on. A lot of energy right now. My voice doesn't usually just crack mid-reading. When another great work inspires us to elevate our own, however, the energy is different. Seeing the bar raised in our field can encourage us to reach even higher. This energy of rising to meet is quite different from that of conquering. I promise you I didn't read ahead. When Brian Wilson first heard the Beatles' Rubber Soul, his mind was blown. If I ever do anything in my life, I'm going to make that good an album, he thought at the time. He went on to explain, I was so happy to hear it that I went and started writing God Only Knows. Being made happy by someone else's best work and then letting it inspire you to rise to the occasion is not competition, it's collaboration. Real work. When Paul McCartney heard the resulting Beach Boys album, Pet Sounds, he too was blown away and reduced to tears, proclaiming God Only Knows was to his ears the best song ever written. Buoyed by the experience, the Beatles played Pet Sounds over and over while creating another masterpiece, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Without Pet Sounds, Sgt. Pepper never would have happened. Beatles producer George Martin said, Pepper was an attempt to equal Pet Sounds. This creative back and forth wasn't based on commercial competition. It was based on mutual love. And we are all the beneficiaries of this upward spiral toward magnificence. No system exists that can rank which work is best reflective of the maker. Great art is an invitation, calling to creators everywhere to strive for still higher and deeper levels. There's another type of competitiveness that might be seen as an infinite game, a story that can continue to unfold over the course of an artist's life. This is the competition with thyself. Think of self-competition as a quest for evolution. The object is not to beat our other work, it's to move things forward and create a sense of progression. Growth over superiority. Our ability and taste may evolve, yielding different works over time, but none can be evaluated as more or less than another. They are different snapshots of who we are and who we were. They are all our best work in the moment they were created. With each new project, we are challenging ourselves to most beautifully reflect what's living in us at that particular window of time. In the spirit of self-competition, take yourself to go further and push into the unexpected. Don't stop, even at greatness. Venture beyond. And I wonder what's beyond greatness in his perspective, in his artistry. What is beyond greatness? Is it evolution? Is it the ability to now create a new standard? What is beyond greatness? That's the question I have to ask. I'm going to keep reading because I have 3 more minutes left. Essence. All the work we do, no matter how intricate, holds an underlying essence, a core identity or fundamental structure. Like a skeleton supporting flesh, some might call it an isness. An isness? I've never heard that before. So I need to meet those some. Mr. Rubin. If a child draws a picture of a house, it may have a window, a roof, and a door. If you take away the window and look at the picture, it's still a house. If you take away the door, it's still a house. If you take away the roof and the outer walls and leave the window and the door, it is no longer clear whether it's still a house. In the same way, each piece of art has a unique life-giving feature that makes it what it is. It might be the theme, the organizing principle, my favorite, the artist's point of view, the quality of the performance, the materials, the mood conveyed, or a combination of the elements. I like that one too. Any of these can play a role in forming the essence. If a sculptor makes a work out of the stone or out of clay, the experience of that work is very different. Yet a work of stone and one of clay can have the same essence. The essence is always there, and our job in the craft phase is not to obscure it. A work's essence may also change from the time you start until the time you finish. As you refine the work, add elements, and move pieces around, a new, different essence may emerge. Sometimes you may not yet know the essence when you're engaged in the work. You're merely experimenting and playing. When you end up with something you like, you may come to realize what the essence is. Distilling a work to get as close to its essence as possible is a useful and informative practice. Notice how many pieces you can remove before the work you're making ceases to be the work you're making. Refine it to the point where it is stripped bare in its less decorative form, yet still intact, with nothing extra. Sometimes the ornamentation can be of use, often not. Less is generally more. If you have 2 units you want to put together, whether it be 2 sentences or 2 parts of a song, there can be a tremendous amount of power in doing so without a transition. Try finding the simplest, most elegant way to put a point across with the least amount of information. Wow. I reached my 10-minute mark, but I'm going to finish this chapter. If there's any question as to whether an element serves the piece, it's probably a good idea to let it go. Some artists get superstitious about removing aspects of a work as if it will make the project evaporate before their eyes. So it's worth remembering that anything taken away can always be put back later if needed. Perfection is finally obtained not when there is no longer anything to add, but when there's no longer anything to take away. Wow. You see what happened there? Do you hear what happened there? Do you feel what happened there? See, when I asked the question, what is beyond greatness? the first word that came to my mind was perfection. But I was afraid to say it because nobody can be perfect. We hear that our whole lives. As children, as adults, as people who fail, we hear that perfection is not obtainable. And in some microcosms or ecosystems or religions, perfection belongs to one entity. Perfection belongs to a system. It doesn't belong to humanity. And it is out of our reach, but it's something we can digest from a distant stimuli. And it's distant primarily because it's so perfect. And yet we're here trying to chase that perfection while it's still moving in its everlasting gracefulness. So I'm going to read that again because it is from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, Wind, Sand, and Stars. I don't know if I said his name correctly. That's why I said it fast, but I apologize if I said it wrong. Once again, perfection is finally obtained not when there is no longer anything to add, but when there's no longer anything to take away. And the idea that comes to mind is giving birth to a baby. And I don't know if it's because I have this experience, and I'm grateful I have it, but when the seed is planted in the mother's womb, however, and the baby becomes and the cells become fetus, that organism is not perfect. It's missing a lot of things. And then through time, through evolving within the body, that seed exits the womb with everything it has, everything it needs to survive. And it goes back to the house. Is the house still a house if it doesn't have windows, if it doesn't have doors? It's a different image. It's a lot to digest from what I read, and I really think I'm going to have to review that all over again because I asked a lot of questions, and I got some answers, and some answers that created more questions. And that's the beauty of creating art and sharing it, is sometimes we just get questions that need to be answered, and the only way to answer them is to deep dive into nature, fail and fail again, or just keep reading on. If I would have stopped after greatness, then I wouldn't have answered my own question. What is beyond greatness is this eternal evolution that a wide range of people can endure. So I read on to life happenings. But I read on with the hope to find out what's to come. One more part from this book, and then I'll be done reading from The Creative Act, A Way of Being, and it'll be your turn to go get your hands on that book however you find it, no matter what. But I also want to say one more thing before we go. Oftentimes, as a librarian, you think the work is completed when you hand the individual a book, right? And the patron goes home happy, accepting the fact that they have their hands on this great resource, or the resource that's going to help them solve their problems, answer questions, build their knowledge, entertain them, whatever the scope is. But sometimes at the reference desk, more questions come up that open the database of answers. There's more that can come from one simple question because another question could be the answer. We don't want to solve the problems as librarians. I specifically don't want to solve the problems because I may not know the full nature of what is going on. And that's how you solve a problem. That's why we have medical history. That's why we document things and recognize patterns. But oftentimes as librarians, we don't see the pattern in people until they're consistently visiting. But what about that individual who has that pressing question that they've had for a very long time, and they decide for the first time to come ask you, and they've never opened the door to asking anybody about this inquiry that's been burning deep inside of them? That is when we as librarians need to be creative in our responses of how to be proactive in our leadership through literacy. So I hope that everything comes together and we continue sharing these stories, these sections, because handing out a patron a 300-page book, we can't guarantee there's value in every page. But we can also let them know that there's value somewhere in it and find it together. Collaborate. Don't compete. That's all I have for you folks. Catch you next time. Bye.